We're just going to give you guys a 2-minute warning to get your seats, and then we'll start the evening. Oh, you guys went silent right away. Okay. Well, good evening, Cowley. Thank you all for coming out, and thank you for inviting the team. And I'm saying that selfishly because I've never driven Highway 22 before, and I am just amazed at how beautiful it was. So thank you for having us. How many of you are here for the very first time at an event like this? Oh, quite a few of you. Well, welcome, and I hope you'll find that your time was well spent. There's just a few housekeeping items before we start. The bathrooms are located out the main exit here and turn to your right. There are emergency exits here at the left at the back of the hall, to my right here, and of course out through the main doors. If you haven't yet, please help yourself to the refreshment table. And I have to give an incredible shout out to the people of Cowley and the volunteers who invited us here and prepared this wonderful little feast at the back. You've done so well, so thank you. There's also a sign-up table at the back, and if you haven't had a chance, it's just so that we know where you're from, and if we're back in this area, we'd like to send you a poster of any upcoming events that you might be interested in. There's also trifold brochures at the back, contains a lot of information, maybe answer a lot of questions that you might have. So please feel free to pick at least one of each. There's 4 still left, Shane, yeah? Different kinds. Take at least one each. And then if you think you can give them out to family or friends, please take more. There's lots more in the boxes. We also have lawn signs. Cory has some over here to my right, and there's some Let's Talk Alberta ones in the back. They're all by donation. So we would love to welcome you tonight to an informational event sponsored by Let's Talk Alberta. And the whole goal of this event and the meetings that we have across the province is just to do what the name says, and that's just let's talk. These events offer an opportunity for people like you and me to just get together, discuss the issues that are facing our country, facing our province, and to do it in a safe place and hopefully in a respectful manner. We've been shouting names at each other for too long, and it's nice to come and understand what the other person feels and why they feel that way. And I think you'll find that we agree on an awful lot more than we disagree. So we're not only interested in speaking to you, we're hoping that you will speak to us and that you will bring your comments, your questions, any issue that you want to discuss later on in the program. We start with the speakers. We'll each give a presentation. We have 3 here tonight. And then we'll have a short break, and we will go into the question and answer period. Now, we usually bring a mic around the side and have people come up to the mic, and if that's something you'd like to do, that's fine. But we also have little sheets of paper at the back, so if you want to remain anonymous and you want to ask a question, please come to the back. We'll give you a pen and paper, or we can write it down for you, and then we'll ask the questions for you. As a society, we are not a TPA, so we are fully dependent on you guys for our funding to make these things happen, for us to continue to the next town and the next town. So just be assured that any donations that you give are taken seriously. We appreciate them very much, and it makes you such a big part of Let's Talk Alberta. Let's see. All right, during the time of the presentation, we're just going to ask that you would all hold your comments and questions till the question and answer period. We also are undergirded by 3 values, and that is faith, family, and freedom. And so we always traditionally open our meetings in prayer, and I've asked Mr. Ben Crane if he wouldn't mind coming and opening the meeting up in prayer.
I'd be honored to. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for such a great country that we have. We absolutely love it, and we're so happy for the freedom that we do have. We're concerned about what's eroding. So, Lord, I'm asking that you give us wisdom. And would you give us wisdom tonight and the ability to just be happy to hear each other out and be wise and respectful, because you've made us all, and we just love living here. So thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for the great weather. Thank you for the bunch of people that showed up, and we give this meeting to you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
So I'm just going to ask Ben to stay put. He's going to be our first speaker tonight. I was going to say that Ben is a comedian, but I think that's evident. So there's a lot to say about Ben. He's a musician. You're going to hear a little bit of that later. He's a singer-songwriter. He's a cartoonist, and he's also a writer. He's also a very talented creator of greeting cards. If you go to their merchandise table later, and if you want to buy, you're in need of a deck of playing cards, you'll see all his artwork on there. But I say it every time that I introduce Ben, that I'm not proud to introduce him because of what he does, but because of who he is. He's a wonderful man, and so I'd like to just ask you to welcome Ben Crane to the mic.
Well, I appreciate that a whole bunch. This bunch of people that we've been traveling with have kind of become almost like family, and we're just as weird as any other family. So we're almost, yeah, we're weird. She isn't, I think is what she's saying. Hey, thank you guys so much for coming out, man. I appreciate that. We have some stuff that we want to say, and we want to discuss, and we want to hear, and it's a whole lot easier to do that with a room full of people than a room full of chairs. So, and when I was asked to join this group of speakers, and I was told that because I'm a songwriter, I should just be able to write songs, right? That's easier said than done, but you know what? That is true. I can say things. I'm not really a speaker. That's not my talent. These other two guys that are here, they amaze me every single time that they speak. I don't know how they can get all that stuff out from their between their ears, all the way out their mouth, and it still sounds great. I try to do the same thing, and inside I'm really smart, but as soon as I open my mouth, you know how that goes. But you know what? The things the three songs that I want to sing you tonight are my heart. That's what I know I can say because I've thought them out. The first one is talking about roots. And I was talking to several people before everything started, and they're talking about how deep their roots were, and I was talking about how deep my roots are. Our grandkids are sixth generation on the family farm, and we love it. We get to see them every night and tuck them into bed, and it's the coolest thing that a granddaddy and a grandma could ever do. And you know what? The things that I love about Alberta, the things that have become my roots, are things like truth and honesty and common sense and the ability to thrive. Can we turn the monitor down just a hair, please? Thanks. And these are things that most people talk about. This is what Canada is, and it was. I love Canada with my heart. I love Canada. I don't want to see it broke up, but at the same time, I see no other way. Canada is no longer there, that Canada, when we see what's been going on with how they're taking us in a totally different direction than what we have been. And I tell you, I'm wearing this family faith and freedom shirt that we made. And I got thinking the other day, when something adversely affects family or faith or freedom, I'm out, because those are the foundational things that I stand on. So let me try that one. My Alberta roots run deep. This is the first one I writ. The only life I know goes back 100 years, steeped in deep traditions, blood and sweat and tears. The value of hard work, common sense and hope and truth, family and freedom, and the value of our youth. What makes me wanna hold on to what I know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand my ground and fight. My Alberta roots run deep. It's in my blood, in my bones. They get stronger every day. When somebody tries to move it, take it all away, I just draw a line there in the sand, stand my ground and say, my Alberta roots run deep. Well, it's living on the land, watching life come and go, working hard and playing hard through sunshine and in snow. We don't really ask for much, 'cause we know that God provides and has given us all the things we need to enjoy this life and thrive. So it makes us want to hold on to what we know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand my ground and fight. My Alberta they get stronger every day. But when somebody tries to move you, take it all away. We can draw a line there in the sand, stand around and say, my Alberta roots, you can't hide them, they define us, made us who we are today. And when life's this good, you just don't throw it away. Our Alberta roots run deep. You can't dig it up, you can't pull them out. They grow deeper every day. And when somebody tries to move it and tear it all away, we just draw a line there in the sand, stand the ground and say, our Alberta roots run deep, run deep. I appreciate that a bunch. There's a couple guys that travel with us that are historians, and they've spent their life studying the history of Alberta. And there's stuff that I did not know. I did not know that we didn't even ask to join back in 1905. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that, I mean, either we would have got swallowed up by Canada or we would have got swallowed up by the States. I mean, that's just the way it was, so who cares, right? We can't do nothing about history back then. But it's just the way things, how the system was designed right from the start to kind of keep us under wraps and under control. And I never really thought that was a good idea. So I wrote a song called Big Dreams, and it's kind of my tongue-in-cheek look. You know, I'm a cartoonist, so I can't stay that serious all that long. But I had a lot of fun writing this one. This is a tongue-in-cheek about my view of how things went according to history. Big Dreams. Spending our time to mind our own business and thrive just fine. But the East had different ideas. We was too good a deal to pass up. They saw what we had and they wanted it bad, so they signed us up there on the spot. They said, we'll call you Alberta, land the big sky and big dreams. Do the work, we'll take the pay. That makes us the ultimate team. Now we realized if we was against it, this arrangement just couldn't go far. They said, you feed the cow, we may allow you to take a small sip from the jar. Things just got worse as the time flew. Feds kept us stomping our necks. Take all our pay, keep our assets at bay. The whole thing's become a big wreck. Say goodbye to old Alberta, land of big sky and big dreams. We're told what Yeah, boy, we have a lot of fun. I was able to record all of these things in that little studio that I call mine. And it's just fun to be able to get out and say what you actually feel. You know, and that's really what's going on. I have my opinion. You may have yours. You may have yours. Maybe the three of us don't agree on a bunch of stuff. But by golly, we can sure occupy the same room and still grin. And that's not just because you got gas. I didn't say that out loud, did I? You know, I mentioned that our system was designed right from the start to kind of keep us not working that well. And it's amazing to me every time that Alberta seems to start looking successful, there's folks from the east who are saying, we can't have that. And that was right from 1904. There's stuff about that. And, you know, I had an old feller at one of our meetings about a month ago. He says, I just don't know. I don't have the answers. And I don't either. I don't claim to have the answers. I don't own a crystal ball. I can't tell what's up. I'm not an elected leader of any association of any type. I'm just here because I have an opinion, and I was asked to share it. And this old feller says, I don't know anything except for one thing. And he says, we've got to change. Something's got to change, because what is going on now is just no longer an option. That's become the greater risk is to stay the same. I saw a brochure that said, if you choose to stay or to leave Canada, everything's going to go wrong. It's going to be immediate disaster, and nothing's going to work. You might as well just, like the old nitty-gritty dirt band song says, turn out the lights and blow out the moon, because life is ended as we know it. And they said, but if you choose to stay in Canada with the way things are going, at least we get to keep the status quo. And I thought, to keep a status quo does not sound like first day on my new lips, I'm sorry. Does not sound like progress to me. And a status quo, by definition, means that something's staying the same. And we ain't staying the same. We have gone left real fast. And I would say, actually, if you want the status quo of what Canada used to be, that we all nostalgically love, at least us geezers, choose Alberta, because that's about the last bastion standing of those traditional values. Something's got to change. Thank you. Something's got to change. Something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. When the front wheel starts to wobble, man, pull your truck on over. 'Cause you may not be the only nut that's loose. You just can't ignore it or pretend that it's okay, 'cause that shaky wheel is gonna cook your goose. Something's gotta change. Yeah, something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't claim to have the answers or the way to hold back history's racing clock. it's time to leave the couch, time to hit our knees, rebuild this country on a solid rock. Something's gotta change, yes, something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. Let's talk Alberta, it's up to me and you. You've heard that real insanity is to try the same thing over again and wonder why you get the same response. There's gotta be more options, there's gotta be a way to bring this crazy train wreck to a halt. Something's gotta change. Something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. Let's talk Alberta, it's up to me and you. Yeah, let's talk Alberta, it's up to me and you. Wow, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Well, that's enough for the entertainment part of it, but I do hope that it was more than just entertainment. There's some things to think about there. The next feller that we want to bring up is one of the smartest guys I know, and he really needs no. You can stand up. It is actually you, Cory. Yeah. This man needs no introduction, and I've watched. Oh, don't clap yet, because it all goes to his head. No, I've watched him. My wife and I have watched him quite a bit on the inner tube there, and he's got a show with Western Standard as well as several other shows. And what has hit me the most is this guy's about the most level-headed guy. When everybody else's blood starts boiling, typically he is the kind of guy who says, you know what, let's just sit back, take a breath, take a bit of coffee, and let's keep things going. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend and yours, Cory Morgan.
Thank you all for coming out. Let's see if I can raise this here before Max comes running up. No, I'll just bend over. So yeah, I mean, it's great to be back here. I was here a couple of years ago. Maybe some of you guys were here then too. That was APP event, I believe, with Dennis Modry and Chris before. And it's just a great little hall and a fantastic bunch of people.
I'll be Max.
That'll work. Yeah, well, it gets too close, looks too phallic, and I get insecure. So I may as well clarify right now, my pronouns are he, him, in case anybody was wondering. You won't find me in the wrong washroom. I know what a urinal's for. It's sad that these things have to be clarified these days, isn't it? So I want to start off with some good news. Some people might have seen that before they came here. The Stay Free Alberta petition has been finally officially validated by Elections Alberta. So that is a big step. Now, to clarify, things are still hung up in the courts. They're still going into appeal. This could be a long, long time before that's all completely finished. But one big item of mistruth and attempts to undermine the effort of all those petitioners who worked so hard out there is gone. Naheed Nenshi can't keep going around saying that the petition used compromised lists. The Elections Alberta officer said clearly none of the salted names from electoral lists were found in the petition whatsoever. They searched for them. They were not there. I knew there wouldn't be because I went out to so many of those petitioning stations, met with people, checked with them, and watched how meticulous, how careful They were to make sure people had identification, that they followed those rules to a T, because they knew we'd be scrutinized with every single signature. I saw people turned away because they came with a driver's license with nothing but a box number on it. I mean, the temptation to say, well, we'll just scribble something in and put it on. No, we're following the rules. This is the way it goes. And it makes it a lot more difficult to get those, but the volunteers did it. And it's fantastic, and everybody should be proud of themselves for having gotten that through, because that's a huge accomplishment. Anybody who thinks that getting a few 100,000 signatures on a real petition, a paper petition, is an easy thing to do has never actually petitioned before. It is a monumental task to do it officially. And now things can move forward. There is, though the courts are holding it up, enough as far as the legislation is concerned for a mandate for a referendum on independence. Now that's not going to come right away, as I said. The more immediate one we have is on October 19th. Not exactly the one everyone was looking for, but it's an important event. It's moving in the right direction. We are in an incredible time, a time in our lives like I've never seen before. Some of it seems like a broken clock where we're going over and over Groundhog Day. How many times have we got to keep fighting with Ottawa? How many times have they got to overreach into provincial jurisdiction? How, many times do we capitulate on these things? But I've never seen it where we've had such a solid year discussing basically Alberta's place within the Federation. I've never seen such an organized push and uprising saying we've had enough, and it's sustaining. I've been involved in independence movements for a depressingly long time. Some of you folks might remember when I led the Alberta Independence Party when I was 29. I barely even had gray hair yet. And here I am still at it. But I'm not leading any parties anymore, so the grays have stopped expanding. But it's an ongoing thing. And what I've seen over those years, usually when we get ticked off, it's like a wave. It comes in, everybody gets all upset. We stomp our feet, we get mad, we yell and do some things, and then within 6 months it just kind of fades back and we go back into that same old pattern. And then something else happens and we all get wound up again, and it fades back. This time, something's different. And the final catalyst was the federal election. I mean, that was just the holy cow, 10 years of Trudeau. Could we not at least get a few years of a conservative government that might be less bad to us for a little while? And no, all they had to do was slap a new coat of paint on another Liberal and we're in for another term. And that's when people said that's enough. I mean, they had it. But it's more than the party, it's the system. And as people talk and discuss and look at things, they begin to realize that this is much deeper than just a party. That's what brings somebody into the independence fold. If you think you can change anything by just changing the party, well, then what's the point of pursuing independence? But you see people realizing that's why a fair amount of us, there's a lot of younger people coming out, which is great, but are getting grayer because we've seen the futility of constantly putting it in there and realizing nothing substantially changes. This wave has come in for a year, and it's not just sustained, it's getting stronger. This petitioning, people were pretty dejected when the injunction put it on hold for a little while. They wondered, did I stand out in the highways freezing, people swearing at me, people like that lunatic who was driving around in the Jeep here calling us traitors, people who had coffee thrown on them, cigarette butts butted on their face. It really happened. They're thinking, did I waste all my time on that? And I tell you what, even if it wasn't validated today, nobody wasted 1 minute of their time when they went out and did that petitioning. What that exercise did was built a foundation and an organization and a network, socially and literally, of people who are working together now to move us closer to independence. We haven't had something like this before. We've never had a foundation like this before. We had the Western Canada concept way back in the 80s. Got one person elected in a by-election on a protest vote. It's an accomplishment. But that was one of those waves that came in and kind of went away again. They didn't build what's sitting here now. 7,000 people signed up as volunteers to garner signatures. That number has been growing. And now there's probably well over 10,000 people who are saying, what can I do? How can I work on this? What can I work towards? This is a movement. And that's just the movers and the shakers on the ground. We've got hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people now who are doing a self-examination on the issue of unity, on the issue of federalism, and starting to wonder, is this worth it or not? We never had that many people thinking about this issue. And it's certainly not going to go away. It's not going to go away between now and October 19th. But it's up to us to make sure that it does continue after October 19th. Some people, again, some of that frustration, dejection, saying, well, we didn't get the question we wanted. This isn't the direction we wanted to go exactly. Look, nobody said it was going to be easy. We knew they were going to throw every hurdle and roadblock at us that they could think of. And they're going to continue to. But we still have to keep pushing forward with whatever mechanism we have. And having this opportunity to express, the problem is we have to win it because we can't afford to lose it. So even if on October 20th, even if we'd had a 60% vote, guess what's happening the day after? Well, actually not much, because it's a non-binding referendum. But it does mean this is carrying forward. And I'm not campaigning to lose. If we come in at 40%, still got to mention that, that's a very strong chunk of Albertans who have said enough is enough and it's time, and we keep working from there, and then we examine why the other 20% haven't come over and we go from there. But if we come into this and get 20% this October, we're going to have a really, really hard time trying to keep that concept of breaking out of the Federation alive for people. It's not going to go away. I mean, again, I've been at it since I was 29. I don't care if it's 2%. I'm still going to keep hammering at it. But I really want to see this come in my lifetime. And we have an opportunity. So what have we got to do, though? What have we got to do? I think most of us, and I've had those conversations at the table off to the side already, we got to talk to people. We've got to engage people. We have to be the campaigners. This is unique. We don't have a René Lévesque or Jacques Parizeau. We don't have a party doing this. And I think it's an advantage and a disadvantage, because what we're working on, again, is unprecedented and it's personal. It's very important to people. We're asking them to make still what is considered one of the biggest decisions of their lives. And one of the areas we have to check ourselves as campaigners is when we dismiss the concerns of somebody who's undecided or opposed as saying, that's just emotional, it's foolish, it's just emotional, it's stupid. Well, you do that, and that hand that was hovering over the no is going to drop right over there and vote for it for sure. We have to respect why they are reticent to move our way. And that's what we got to keep in mind. We're of the habit, we're doers. We're people who get up and go to these meetings. We're the people who go out and petition. And we like talking at people. I sure do. I do it for a living. But sometimes we got to change our own nature. And the most important thing, and I was talking to another gentleman, it's true, we've got to listen. Because lots of people have concerns. Lots of people are on the fence. And they will come to the same conclusion as us, but they need some of these discussions to get there. We facilitate the discussions. We're not telling people what to do. We are guiding. And they will come to that conclusion on their own. And that's how you do it, especially with an emotional decision. It doesn't matter if it's nuts and bolts, finances, economics, freedoms, constitutional ideas. Those things are all great, and we can bring out the textbooks and talk to people, but when they just feel a sentimental attachment to the old system and that's what's holding them there, it's still going to hold them there, and it still brings that vote to the direction we don't want to see. That's why Jason Kenney in the debate, a smart, very good communicator, good debater, he could have campaigned on the nuts and bolts. He didn't. He went straight for the emotion. Why? Because he knows it works. But who moves somebody on a personal decision? It's not an independent media blowhard like me. It's not a brochure. All these things are important, but the most important thing is an engagement with somebody they know. That's how you move somebody on a trust issue. To be able to look them in the eye and have a discussion with them, whether it's a family member, a coworker, somebody you sit next to in the bar, all sorts of circumstances, situations, people you know. This is how a movement spreads. This is how a foundation grows. And these events that Chris puts on are fantastic, and the title says it all. It's Let's Talk, because there's so much to talk about. So many people have different reasons why they may want to go. But we have to identify those reasons and bring them there, and respectfully, and carefully, and tactically. We're campaigners. We're looking for opportunities. We've got 2.5 months. That's going to go fast to chat with these people. And as I said, it's something counterintuitive to us, but to bring them in. I use the example of my boss at the Standard, Derek Fildebrand, our publisher, stubborn man. If I go stomping into his office with a brilliant idea and say, we've got to do this, I got the best idea in the world, Derek, say, yeah, go right to call him, Cory, we'll talk about it later. If I sit down and talk about it in a roundabout way and just drop the bugs into his ear until Derek comes up with that idea by himself. Immediately, it's the best idea he ever saw, and we're going to move forward with it. It's not being deceptive, it's letting somebody come to their own conclusion. And that's how we have to work on these things. But we also have to be armed to answer a lot of questions. And we have to know when the conversations are right. So there's a couple things we got to do. I mean, for one, there's three types of people we're going to run across. There are the dedicated independent supporters who I think the bulk of this room are already there. There's the people who absolutely are never going to support this no matter what circumstance. They're just going to drive in circles in a Jeep and scream at people. And then there's the middle that we need. And there's where you must have those conversations. Now, discussing independence notions with somebody when you already know 100% that they're never going to support it is really wasting your energy and possibly getting in a fight with somebody who could still be a close friend or a relative or something, and it's just not worth sacrificing your relationship for. Just talk about something else. Talk about sports. Talk about the weather. Talk about Katy Perry. Maybe for the first time they'll start thinking about politics. But find those people who are in the middle. Those are the people we really got to reach. So we got to have the conversations with. The ones who were green lighted, the ones who were already there with us, that 30% or so that I think are already there. They're good to talk to network with for evenings like tonight and share things with. So it's not wasted time having those discussions, but the critical ones are on those undecideds. And we got to figure out how to reach them. And they're going to have questions. One of the ways to find somebody who's unsupportive too, they'll usually self-identify really quickly. Like I say, I like to use the analogy, it's like being in a room with a vegan. Don't worry, they'll let you know really fast. You don't have to wait too long. But there are some who will be a little deceptive even if they're actually campaigning against you. And one of the things they love doing is battering you with questions. They love the whataboutisms. What about? Well, if you can't answer this 126 questions, you're not giving me an honest case for independence. Well, these are people that are out to waste your time. But you've also got to identify some of the people who have a handful of questions that are very legitimate, that you may be able to answer. Those are difficult to distinguish from. So watch for that. And a lot of the questions are ones we can already answer. Chris has done fantastic work with resources online at Let's Talk Alberta, on the website itself, and he's got printed out booklets and things like that for some of the most common questions, because we do get a lot of the same ones over and over and over again. And it can get a little frustrated. You don't want to say, that's the 100th time I've heard that yet. You know, it's okay, that's great, but they're not going to help. We've got to have good stock answers for them. Another thing we can't be afraid of saying is sometimes saying, I don't know. Let me get back to you. Albertans have good BS detectors. Don't try to make something up. It's just going to look worse. People want honest engagement. That's what we're about. And how do we know we're honest? How do we know we're on the right side? Look at the playing field where it's going so far. I started in a bout of insanity, that third-party advertising group. I have said to others, and I wasn't kidding, I was just frustrated because things were going slowly. I thought we'd get something going and just get some signs out there and raise a few $1,000s. And it kind of took off. Now it's raised close to $150,000, and I haven't slept in a month, but it's great. But we're following those rules to a T. I'm sitting up late yesterday, Thursday night, one by one, entering every contributor into that drop-down form that Elections Alberta gives us. We're refunding any contributions that came from outside of the province. We're making sure we document every person who's given us more than $50. We are following the rules, as is Keith Wilson, as is Jason Levine, as are Kathy Flett. Thomas Lukasik is squirming like a fish on a hook to avoid disclosing for whatever reason. There's two problems going on here. One, what the hell are you hiding? Why are you so terrified just to show who's funding you? If you're on the up and up and you have no problems, why are you afraid of showing who's giving you money and where are you spending it? The other thing is mystifying is why is Elections Alberta pissing on our leg and telling us it's raining? Because, I mean, it's a campaign. It's a campaign by 100 different definitions. I don't know if that, they have had thousands of complaints. Thomas Lukasik has literally said on video, I am campaigning. He has literally said on video, I need to win this referendum. He literally has opened 3 offices that say campaign office on them. And Elections Alberta said, no, he's not running a campaign. He doesn't have to disclose. What the hell? I don't know. We can only lose so much sleep over what the other side's doing, but it also shows the principles of the other side. The other thing, so they're willing to set aside transparency, honesty, and following the rules. That tells us a lot about them. The other aspect is who's out there attacking? Who's throwing people into traffic, as we saw in that video with the guy with the flag? Who's butting the cigarettes in people's faces? Who's driving around screaming? Who's stealing and vandalizing signs? It's not us. I got a bit. I'm sure we got a few nuts among us. I mean, when you get hundreds of thousands of people, you're going to get a few. That's law of averages. But in general, we've been upbeat, we've been peaceful, we've been positive, and we're going to maintain that. As frustrating as it might get to seem when you're dealing with somebody who seems to feel that rules and civility don't matter, going to their level doesn't help. Again, this is an exercise of winning trust from people. These guys don't realize that when they're playing like weasels, they're not going to win that middle ground that we need to win. People will see through that. So we will maintain that higher ground and continue to, and let them do their running around. But it's going to be a battle right to the end. They're going to pull out all the stops. We're just building the foundation for this campaign right now. I mean, when Labor Day hits, that's when it's really going to hit in full. The most we can get done right now is helping to build that foundation so we can hit the ground running, because this is a tough one, guys. This is a lot of people to win over in a short period of time. We're doing great. You know, we've been raising more funds than we imagined out of things like that, but you got to look at the numbers. In a regular provincial campaign, a party is going to spend $5, $6 million, $10 million. We are capped as third-party advertisers. We can't raise or spend more than $607,000 each. Now, we can have a whole number of third-party advertisers, and that'll make a cumulative thing, but it makes it impossible to have one central campaign organization. So we all have to bite off little bites of the campaign. It's kind of unique. It's a brilliant political exercise to watch unfold. We've never seen really anything like this before. I think it has advantages and disadvantages. But we'll see where it goes. It's a tough role. I've specialized in signs, for example. I've had people say, signs don't vote. You're putting way too much focus on signs. Well, that's what I'm talking about, taking a bite off, though, because another third-party advertising group won't have to spend as much on that. Maybe they can spend on polling, or they can spend on literature, or they can spend on databasing for get out the vote campaigns. Just leave the signs to me, guys. I can manage to get 600,000 of them worth of them out there. But the other thing signs do is they open conversations, and that's what we need to do. We need the engagement. We need to normalize this conversation. There's so many people still speaking of this that support it, but speak in whispered tones. There's people that, I've talked about it before, and I talked to others over there, right when I got this going, a guy who cut us a check for $1,000 for my TPA. I said, fantastic, let me get a sign for your lawn. No, I can't put that out there. Man, you'll spend $1,000 on this, but you're still afraid to put a sign on your lawn. What'll the neighbors think? We got to get past that. But it's easier to do it when the neighbor down there has already put a sign up, and when that Alberta flag is up over there. We all got to be the first ones to step forward, and the more that come out there, the more they will spread. And I think more will come as we get into fall and people are paying attention. So signs change votes? No, they don't. But if you got that sign on your lawn, and you're mowing the lawn and you talk to the neighbor who you never talked these sports issues about before, and it turns out perhaps that person thought the same way you do, but they never felt like talking to you about it before because it's that taboo issue. But now they see the sign and they can have that conversation. And they realize, you know, holy cow, we got 4 of those down the block now. They are springing up. This isn't a minority thing. We got to do it on many, many fronts. You know, this is going to be a campaign on many levels, but we're the ones. We're personally responsible. And we're the perfect province for it because we're built on that. This is a province of doers. We came out, our predecessors came out here in this god-awful winds and sod huts and trying to break that land and sitting and establishing the country that's here today. And they're Canadians. I don't have a problem with Canada, and I still love and respect the history that brought me to where I am. It's just now that it's time to evolve and change. But we're still that self-starting individualist type of Albertans, so we're going to just get things done instead of waiting for somebody else. And that's why we can take that campaign on our shoulders and make it a success, even if it doesn't have an established political party. We don't have a blueprint because it's never been done like this before, but we're going to figure out how the heck to get it done, and we're just going to get it done. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to bring Chris up here to speak to you, and then we'll get on to the question and answer phase 2, which I really look forward to, because everybody always hits me with one I never even thought of, and that's the part of this where I get to learn some stuff too. And again, once in a while you might even hear me say I don't know to a couple of them when you catch me flat-footed. Not too often though, but it happens. My wife will remind me. So thank you for letting me bend your ear for a little bit. Chris Scott started this up. He's done so much work. It's been so brilliant. And again, one of those, I think, who doesn't need any introduction. You know who he is, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he has to say to you tonight. So I'll talk to you again when the question and answer starts, guys. Thanks.
Well, Cory and I have lots in common. I'm also looking forward to seeing what I have to say tonight. Because I have no idea. That's not true. What I want to talk about tonight, actually, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you for coming out and listening to what we have to say, and hopefully for sharing with us what you have to say as well. Last time I was in Cowley, it was with Cory, as he mentioned. We were on what we called the Ambassadors for Independence tour. And this was back when the conversation about Alberta independence wasn't really cool. You know, we were kind of past the issues that arose in Alberta specifically, and then on into Ottawa with thousands of trucks. We're kind of past all that, and the momentum had kind of died down. People were doing their thing, living their lives as we all want to do. And this conversation wasn't really something people were super excited about. I mean, the thoughts were there, the notion was there, but the rooms weren't full. And Cory and I and a couple others, we did, I can't remember how many stops there were quite a few. We spent quite a while going around Alberta just talking to Albertans about how to talk about this thing. Because it's been kind of a dirty subject, a taboo subject for quite a while. Like, let's face it, this isn't, the independence conversation is not like it is in Quebec. In Quebec, you could be the most prominent business person in town, be a hardcore Quebec sovereigntist or separatist, and nobody would ever say anything negative about you for it, even if they were a federalist. But in Alberta, it's a totally different thing. And even our politicians they're fostering division and animosity between people that have differing opinions. And I've been saying this lately, and I'll say it again, that the people that don't agree with me, and I'll tell you my opinion, is that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. The people that disagree with me on that are being led by some to look at me as less than human, as somebody who is talking about things that shall never be spoken. You know, I'm a what's the word? A dirty seppy now. I mean, across history, people have come up with all sorts of interesting labels for people that they wish to dehumanize, and seppy, I think, is the latest. But I'm going to make a T-shirt, and I'll make money off it. So, you know, when life gives you lemons. Now, when Cory and I were doing that, the idea was we want to help people talk. And this has been a common theme throughout everything that I've been a part of in the last, well, my politically active life, which is only 6 years, which is absolutely pathetic for a 47-year-old person. It's always been, we need to talk about these things. We need to learn. We need to educate ourselves about these things. So when we're making the decisions, we make the right ones, right? If we're going to have a referendum on self-determination, we probably should know what our vote means. We probably should know what both sides are offering, or what the future on one looks like as opposed to the future on the other path. And if we don't bother to do those things, if we don't talk about them and learn as much as we can, we're going to go into a question that is unbelievably critical and a huge blessing when you look at it from a global perspective, what people have had to do to get that question given to them. We'll go into that booth and we won't know what we're doing, and we'll check a box out of emotion. Whether it's, oh, I just hate Carney, or, oh, F Maple Leaf CK Trudeau, whatever that means, I still don't know. And they'll check a box. Or the other side will say, I am always forever Canadian. I love Canada, this is the greatest country ever, and they'll check the box. Neither side ever have actually taken the time to bother listening to the opposite view. And if we do that, one of us will make a huge mistake. And there is one path that will be better than the other. I advocate for one path, and I'm happy to talk about it. I will back up my claims. I will offer ideas on how we could get there, and I will give examples of why I believe we need to do this. And I'm willing to stand on that. If we don't do that, oh boy, what a missed opportunity it will be. One of the things that I've heard, this is very, very common. One of the things that I've heard from people who disagree with me is, this is the best country in the world. There's nothing to talk about. Do you have any idea how many times I've heard that? I've heard that more times than I can count. Some from my own friends, and we just don't talk about it anymore because I want to still be friends. But there is something to talk about. And I may have been on that, there's nothing to talk about side, except as a 46-year-old Canadian, I have had the government try to destroy my business. I have, and this is in court transcripts, I have seen and shown and proven that government at many different levels coordinated an attack to try and ruin my business. And you might think, well, Chris, you were getting people sick. No. You go through the court transcripts, and they never once said anything about health. You know what they said? Do you know why the government and the bureaucrats said they wanted to stop me, shut me down, make me shut up? Because I was making them look bad. Because me wanting to have a conversation about something that important that was affecting, at that time, hundreds of millions of lives across the globe, I wanted to have this conversation, and they wanted me to shut up because I was making them look bad. I'm a 46-year-old Canadian man, and I have been jailed for the crime of protesting what the government was doing, and I did so on my own land peacefully. I was arrested for that. I was jailed for that. I was fined $30,000. I was given 18 months probation. I'm a Canadian citizen, and I have had my mobility rights suspended, my charter right mobility suspended, for the crime of standing on my own property in peaceful assembly with my peers. I'm a Canadian citizen, and I've attended church services illegally, hiding from my government and their enforcement. Because if I had been found attending church services, worshiping my God as commanded by my faith, I would have been fined. Actually, I would have been jailed because I was on probation. Oh, shoot. Is that evidence? We'll cut that. Oh, it's live. Whatever. Until you go through some of these things, you may not question the great country of Canada that we live in. But I went through some things that caused me to do some learning and some looking. I read our Charter Rights and Freedoms, including Section 1 that says these rights and freedoms are guaranteed to all Canadians unless demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. And then I listened to a judge tell me that what they were doing to me was justified because the person that I was challenging to prove that it was justified said so. Did you follow that? Somebody said that I had to set my rights aside for a reason. And I said, I don't agree with you. And I went before a judge, and the question was, here it was, Judge, they're telling me to do this. I don't believe that they have the evidence to support that. So I want them to show me the evidence, and then we'll go from there. And the judge said, they said so, that's the evidence. Now, I'm watching as our parliament descends the once great nation of Canada into something that does not resemble the Canada that I grew up in. I'm 46, which means I started school in early mid-80s, I guess. I was born in 79, so I would have started school in, 1985 or something like that. That was a fantastic time, by the way. And I can remember my teachers, in particular my grade 4 teacher, a few years later, Mr. Ruda, telling us about Canada, about the Charter Rights and Freedoms, about the Constitution, which had only been repatriated a few years prior. And he was so excited about it. His eyes were glistening, and the man would tear up telling us how Canada is a free nation and it will always be free and it's the best country to live and you have these rights and you have these freedoms and nobody can take them from you. And so, like many of you in this room, I didn't grow up, who am I kidding? I aged with that in my heart, thinking about Canada. And I can't even describe to you how painful it was to realize that what Mr. Ruda had told me and the things that Mr. Ruda knew to be true in his soul about this country that he lived in, and he was a new Canadian. It broke my heart to realize that that was not true. It used to be, but it isn't anymore. My friend Michael Wagner describes very eloquently the difference between old Canada pre-1982, pre-Pierre Elliott Trudeau, and the Canada we inhabit now post-1982, post-repatriation of the Constitution, post-Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And they are two different Canadas. And anyone in this room, regardless of what side of this conversation about Alberta sovereignty and Alberta self-determination you're on, you know that there is a vastly contrasting difference between old Canada and new Canada. In new Canada, after 1982, after the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we were given a list of rights and freedoms. The government enumerated them for us. And I didn't realize this at the time, neither did Mr. Ruda, and neither probably did many of you in this room. I didn't realize when the government enumerates your rights, that implies you don't have others. There are things left out of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms that have contributed to the decline of Canada that we see today. And the two biggest ones are the right to free speech, which we do not have a right to in Canada. It does not. We don't have those two things. Any free society, if you don't have those two things, if you don't have the right to the property you have, and even our federal government let the cat out of the bag when they told us that we don't even own the shirts on our back, and you can't freely speak what you believe, even if what you believe is abhorrent to other people. Even if everyone else in the country hates what you say, you should be able to say it. If you can't express yourself, you are not free. If I can't go to rooms like this and speak my mind truthfully, fearing that the government will persecute or prosecute or incarcerate me for it, I am not free. And some of these things are creeping their way into our legislation. And nobody wants to look. They don't want to see it. It's so much more comfortable to believe in the Canada that Mr. Ruda described. It's so much easier just to say, you know, Canada's free and this is a great country and I don't want to change anything because I'm scared what it might be. That's so much easier. But when you see some of these things and you start to realize and internalize what these things mean for our society and our ability to maintain freedom, you cannot unsee it. And then oftentimes you'll find yourself on a stage speaking to, by now, I'm guessing hundreds of thousands of people, sharing your opinion, sharing the warning, and talking about the opportunity we have before us to make sure that we can preserve the values that made this country great. That's why I keep doing this. That's why I'm away from my family. That's why I'm away from my business. And any business owners in here, you know what it means when you're away from your business. No matter how good your staff is, and my staff are awesome, it doesn't always go smoothly. I can't not do this. I'm 46 years old, I'll be 47 in September. And my kids are adults now. My kids are the age that I still think I am. They're at that time in life where they're thinking about, what house are we going to buy? Where are we going to live? What's my career going to look like? How am I going to retire? How am I going to raise children? And the answers to those questions now, here's one you can't argue with. no matter what side of the conversation you're on. The answers to those questions today are very different from the answers to those questions 40 years ago. Very different. How many people in this room, actually, you don't have to put your hands up, I would wager that there's people in this room who have kids who say, I don't want to have kids in this world. I don't want to bring kids into this world. How could I do that to them? What does that tell you about the job that we've done as the stewards of civics and democracy over the last 40 years in this country, that our kids don't want to have kids and bring them into the world because they're so distraught by the condition of our country? These are the reasons why we have to talk about this and stop just discounting what the other side says because of our emotional connection to something, whether it's anger at Trudeau, and there was a lot of that, or whether it's patriotism to a nation. A terrible truth that I learned, and this came to me at a Remembrance Day ceremony. Patriotism blinds people to the failing of their nation and makes them continue the same thing, pursuing the status quo because of a feeling. The facts don't care about our feelings. Those who wish to strip your rights and freedoms from you, and they exist, whether you believe it or not. If you don't believe me, just look at some of the policy coming out of other places in the world, specifically in Europe, and my friend Jasper will tell you all about this. They do not want you to be free. They don't want you to drive. They don't want you to travel. They want you in your little cubby hole, safe and sound, reliant on the government. Call me a conspiracy theorist if you want, but this is happening in other parts of the world, and it will happen here. Alberta has a chance to do something different. This isn't about breaking up a country. It never was about breaking up a country. This isn't about taxes. This isn't about Carney. It's not about Trudeau. This is about a group of people who have a right, an internationally recognized right to self-determination, should they choose to grab that. Did you know that? Did you know that's a right that's recognized on the international stage? Canada recognizes it. They recognized it when Kosovo declared independence in a way that wasn't really on the up and up. They recognized it with Palestine just recently, with Somaliland. A people's right to self-determination has nothing to do with the preference of the government that they want to leave. This isn't about the Canadian government. This is about Alberta. And Albertans have gotten to a point, whether it's through heartache or anger or fear, because, I fear what could happen if we don't act. We've gotten to a place where we're willing to have the conversation about a future in which we self-determine. This is a big deal. And the world is watching. You know, they're talking about this in Europe. They're talking about this in Australia. I've been interviewed from places all over the world asking me about what's going on in Alberta. Why are you guys wanting to leave Canada? The conversation is real and it's relevant. So we're going to be asked a question about our self-determination in October. And after that, no matter which way it goes, nothing's going to change, but the conversation will change. If Albertans overwhelmingly say we want something different in October, we start talking about what that difference looks like. We start talking to our First Nations partners about what that looks like. And by the way, it's my opinion that an independent Alberta would benefit First Nations more than anybody else. And we get to pursue something that other people have had to picture this. You have a family, you have a quiet life, and the government is like they're starving you. They're doing terrible things to the people in your region, in your province, whatever. And the people decide, we're going to fight for freedom. We're going to get away from these tyrants because we're sick and tired of being under the boots of these people. And that means that people have to go fight them. So it's your son, maybe your daughter, that's walking out the door, getting in a vehicle or on a horse and going somewhere to fight the tyrants. And they don't come back. And this happens year after year after year. In some cases, on this beautiful planet we live, it's been decades of fighting like that. And finally, after the sons and the daughters are gone, and those parents have gone, and it's the next generation or the generation after that, somebody gets to go and answer a question about whether or not they're going to self-determine. Can you imagine? You imagine how blessed those people must have felt? Now consider what you're going to get as an Albertan. Either side of the conversation. Your government is going to allow you, give you the privilege of going to a ballot box and answering a question of self-determination without ever lifting a finger. You could do nothing from now until October 19th and you will still get that privilege. I say that we should feel the weight of that on us every day until October 19th. And the weight we feel should make us understand the responsibility we bear to have the conversations, to make sure that when we answer that question, we are going to have the best outcome for Alberta, not just for us, but for our kids and our grandkids. That's what this is about. That's why Let's Talk Alberta exists. Last night, we had the privilege of having an elected official at one of our meetings. They didn't ask any questions. I understand why. But one of their friends did. And as Cory described, the question was about the what-if-isms. Is that how you call it, Cory? What-if-isms? Well, how is it going to go? What exactly is the plan? Tell me a fully costed whatever and tell me everything about it. And I have to say, you know what? I can't give you that. I can give you my opinion. I can stand up here for 4 hours and tell you what I want to see in an independent Alberta. And just the Cliff's Notes, it would be individual rights and freedoms are at the core of everything. But the bigger question is, what is the opportunity that Alberta and Albertans will have should they choose self-determination? All of those questions you have about what's the military going to look like? What kind of currency are we going to have? How are we going to do international trade? How are we going to get stuff to Tidewater? What are we going to do with our airports? All of those questions, for the first time in Alberta history, we get to answer them. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, as an Albertan, if all of these policy decisions all of the sudden came home to you and they were reflected in our elections? And when we elected people, when we held a general election, the results of it were relevant to us. And all of those things could be decided by people who were accountable to us, rather than people thousands of kilometers away that don't ever suffer the consequences of the policies they impose on us. And we can't change it. This is the problem. This is why, while I will forever be Canadian, because nobody can take my citizenship, I want Alberta to be able to self-determine. I'm tired of watching the news and I walk home from the polling station, I walk into my house, I turn the TV on, and the election is called. Our ballots haven't even been opened, let alone British Columbia's ballots. I'm tired of that. And it doesn't matter if you're a forever Canadian or if you're an Alberta sovereigntist, you cannot be okay with that happening. How can you be okay with not being able to influence the outcome of your democracy? That means yes, we live in a democracy, but your voices, we could not even vote and it wouldn't make a difference 9 times out of 10. There's the odd time that it will, but only when something really crazy happens in the East. This is the right that we need, or this is the wrong that we need to right for our kids. So that when our kids go to vote, when they participate in civics, their voice matters. And they can influence their futures. Alberta has been along for the ride since 1905. Since before that. Because Albertans were never even asked. This area used to be the Northwest Territories. And our Parliament in Ottawa passed a piece of legislation that created Alberta, under the Alberta Act and created Saskatchewan. Albertans weren't asked. First Nations weren't asked. Nobody was asked. Even worse, we never got to negotiate the terms of the entrance into this relationship. That's why when you ask somebody nowadays, if Alberta was already free and you were asked to join under the current terms and conditions, would you? 95% of people will say no, because we never got a say. And my friend Jason Kenney tells me that I should be happy with the incremental gains. 1905, we entered Confederation. 1930, Alberta got control of its land and resources. Can you imagine? We were a province within Canada, and for 25 years, 26 years, we didn't manage our own land and resources. It was Ottawa. 30 years after that, 40, 50 years after that, we still couldn't sell our grain to who we wanted. We couldn't ship things by rail the way we wanted. We have been along for the ride since 1905. And maybe it was appropriate back then when we were a fledgling kind of group of colonies trying to build something and survive the harsh winters, but it's not appropriate now. We are a robust people. We're tenacious. We're inventive. We're creative. We work hard. We want to do better. We know what we want. And it's time our voices reflected that. We're not children anymore. And self-determination is the way that we grow up and get out of mom and dad's house so that we can fully prosper the way we were intended to. Now, I say each time that I don't know what I'm going to say. I kind of knew a little bit what I was going to say. I didn't know I was going to go that long. And I want to thank you for staying with me throughout this whole thing. I've become more and more passionate about this conversation the more I think about it. The more I think about October 19th and what that means in the grand scheme of things, to be asked a question on self-determination, to be asked if we want to be sovereign, that is a huge deal. And I appreciate it tremendously. I appreciate living in a country like Canada that affords me that opportunity. I appreciate living in a country like Canada who respects a people's right to self-determine, even if those people are currently in a relationship with them. Now, on to the not-so-fun part. Let's Talk Alberta is a grassroots initiative. I literally phoned Sheane one day and I said, Sheane, this is what we're doing, and I need you to do all this work. And he's like, all right. And we got our little motley crew together, and we started filling rooms and having these conversations, and it's been going very, very well. And the only reason we've been able to do it is because those very intimidating yellow buckets over there that kind of maybe remind you of church are getting filled. We need your help to do this. If you can support what we're doing, please put something in the bucket. Don't feel compelled to do so. You certainly don't have to. But if you can, we appreciate it. And every dollar you put in there helps us do another one of these events. It helps us print those trifolds and those booklets, which we're going to be printing a lot more. I just did a quick quote to see what it's going to cost to send flyers for our Grand Prairie event in September. $8,000 to do a mail out for flyers. So when you guys donate to Let's Talk Alberta, these are the kind of things we're doing. We're trying to get people in the room to have these conversations, especially the people that disagree with my position that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable. One of the reasons why I want people who disagree with me to come to these rooms is because I know that I'm human and I make mistakes and I could be wrong. So I have to acknowledge that if the question is that important and we need to get the best outcome, I need to invite people here who disagree with me that are going to tell me that I'm wrong and have this conversation and debate these things with me. Because if somebody who genuinely believes that the status quo, that Alberta remaining in Canada is the best path, and they can explain that to me and back that up with facts and tell me how Alberta staying in Canada is better for me and my family and their family, they can bring me to their side. I am not an immovable object. My mind has changed a few times on this subject in the last 6 years. I used to be we need the referendum for leverage so we can fix Canada. I don't believe that's possible now. I advocate for full independence, but I'm not immovable. So if you have something you need to say to me that's going to stop me from advocating my position, and giving my opinion that Alberta independence is necessary and inevitable, you need to tell me. If you don't, I'm going to continue to go all over Alberta, and I'm going to fill rooms like this with my team. And we're going to speak to people just like you, and I'm going to give as the most impassioned, world-changing speeches that I can to express my opinions on why we need to do this, and I'm going to bring an army of people with me to the ballot box. So if you genuinely believe that I'm wrong, you need to challenge me. And I know that it's not the easiest thing to do, because these meetings are generally, it is mostly an echo chamber. I realize that. But you need to be bold and change my mind. Because if you don't, I'm going to keep on doing what I believe is right. And nobody will stop me. Anyway, that's all I've got. We're going to take a break for 10 minutes, which always turns into 15 minutes because we have an awesome time just chit-chatting with you folks. When we come back, we're going to do a Q&A. If you are nervous or you're shy and you don't want to stand up and go to the mic, that's totally fine. There's some paper back there. Please write your questions down. We won't skip any of them. If you have a statement and you want me to convey that statement or listen to the statement, write it down, and our team will share it. We don't want anybody to be left out. So, and otherwise, just come up to the mic and ask your question. So we'll see you in probably 17 minutes.
I know goes back 100 years, steeped in deep traditions of sweat and blood and tears. The value of hard work, common sense and hope and truth, of family and freedom, and the value of our youth. So what makes me want to hold on to what I know is right, and in the face of opposition, to stand my ground and fight. My Alberta roots run deep. It's in my blood and in my bones. It gets stronger every day. When somebody tries to move in and take it all away, I draw a line there in the sand, stand my ground and say, my Alberta roots run deep. Yeah, it's living on the land, watching life come and go. It's working hard and playing hard, in sunshine and in snow. But we don't really ask for much, 'cause we know that God provides. He's given us all the tools we need to enjoy this life and thrive. So what makes us want to hold on to what we know is right, and in the face of opposition, stand our ground and fight. Our Alberta roots run deep. It's in our blood and in our bones. It gets stronger every day. When somebody tries to move it and take it all away, we just draw a line there in the sand, stand our ground and say, our Alberta roots, you can't hide them, they define us. They made us who we are today, and when life's this good, you just can't throw it away. Our Alberta roots run deep. You can't dig them out or pull them out. they go deeper every day. So when somebody tries to move in and tear it all away, just draw your line there in the sand. Stand your ground and say, my Alberta roots run deep. Run deep.
I only had to care about the board and the...
Oh, sorry.
Something's gotta change. Yeah, something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true with politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. When the front wheel starts to wobble, pull your truck on over. You might not be the only nut that's loose. You can't just ignore it or pretend that it's all fine. That shaky wheel is gonna cook your goose. Something's gotta change. Yeah, something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true with politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, don't claim to have the answers or the way to set back history's racing clock. But I know it's time to leave the couch, time to hit our knees, rebuild this country on a solid rock. Something's gotta change, yes, something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true with politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. You've heard that real insanity is to try the same thing over again. I wonder why you get the same results. There's got to be more options. There's got to be a way to bring this crazy train wreck to a halt. Something's gotta change. Something's gotta change. If it just ain't working, let's see what we can do. If it's broke, well, it needs a fix. Same is true in politics. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you. Let's talk Alberta. It's up to me and you.
I'll start in the center here, so it's centered.
I'm not far from it.
Yeah, but I know this is centered, so I'll start here. And then we'll go straight over your way. Thank you. I got her finger. It bothered me so much last night. I was watching, it was crooked.
Well, it's a little bit out, but it's only out about 3/4.
Yeah. But what was bugging me yesterday was crooked this way. So this side is higher than this side. I could see it from up here. And it bothered me. Yes, that goes there.
You want to tape the mics or just the cables?
No, just leave it like that. You mentioned. Up here. And we are.
I just got that part.
Yeah.
I'll just give that mic to Shane. That's the car, okay? I'll give it up.
Q&A microphone. Q&A microphone. Lower. Q&A microphone.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 2-minute warning, and then we'll get to the questions. In between, I'm just going to ask a favor of everyone. If you would go either to letstalkalberta.com or to freedomcalendar.net. We have posters of our upcoming events, and we'd love for you to get those posters off there and share them, because the social media algorithms have not been very kind to us, and so that would help us a lot. And I don't usually do this. Shane asked for something else. Yeah. And please feel free to go to Freedom Calendar on YouTube and share the event tonight. And you can look back in, Max has the whole catalog of them. And so you can go to Freedom Calendar and get any event that you would like to maybe share with others.
Okay, guys, 2-minute warning. We're starting to initiate a 2-minute warning. All the speakers are requested to go up front. So it is now the time to go to the washroom, to go outside, what have you, wherever you need. There's some snacks in the back. Shake some hands with everyone.
Yeah, very importantly to speak loudly on the microphone for everybody.
Okay, hold them close.
And loud.
Okay.
No.
Yeah,
That's what I count.
I will pass that on to them.
Chris Scott, is that a problem?
Well, it's interesting because he usually holds it way down here.
He speaks loud.
But he speaks loud, yeah.
Almost like me, I shout.
Yeah.
I almost shout when I speak.
And I have a certain quality in my voice that projects too much for my wife. She says, quiet, people are going to hear you.
I'm starting today. I'm starting. Yeah, because they do them.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
How are the snacks over there?
Oh, we're almost done.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to start the Q&A session now. Just housekeeping rules here. Where's Jasper? Jasper, where are you? Jasper, where are ya? Right
I'm
there?
here.
Jasper, show your hand. You see this guy over there with the hand waving there? This is Jasper, okay? I know he's Dutch, just kidding. Just kidding. So he has the Q&A microphone. If you got questions, raise your hand and he will come to you. We're trying to make sure that all the questions are on the microphone. We try to not step over when people asking questions. We ask people to keep quiet. Okay, if you got questions and somebody else is asking questions, just keep in mind and wait for your turn. We try to avoid something like people speaking over the microphones and stuff, and do something like this because this is a stream and people can hear it.
I've got the first question over here. Hi, Cory or
Rob White.
Hey?
Your name.
Oh, I'm Rob from the Crow's Nest. I got a question for you, Cory. If we get 51 or higher as a percentage in the vote, why do we have to wait 2 years for another one?
Sure. And I don't know if it'll necessarily be 2 years for another one. That's been kind of the way things are looking, though, the way we get dragged out. That's a kind of a separate discussion. But this one is not a Clarity Act compliant question. It's not a yes-no question. It's not an up-down question. So even if we got 65-70%, it still wouldn't trigger the full independence. Though, the higher we get in it, the better the chance we're going to compel a real referendum faster. So we still should be fully motivated to get as high a turnout and a choosing of that option in this one. As for the 2 year timeline, you might have got that from me speaking the other night. I just think politically, looking from the perspective of Premier Smith, she's going to fight tooth and nail to avoid holding a referendum like that during a general election year. Your window would probably be most effective after that general election to try and compel that. But there's a lot of things to do between October 19th and then, and we'll talk about that on October 20th.
So I'll add a little bit to that. This referendum, it's what we're trying to do is we're compelling the government to acknowledge the will of the people, and they don't want to. So it seems to me like they're facilitating the will of the people through legislation. Yes, I appreciate that. But at the same time, they've openly declared that they will campaign against the idea of an independent Alberta. So they're not going to make it easy. Now, this is because that government wasn't elected on a mandate of independence, and I understand that. So having them facilitate this will take longer. If Alberta elected a government with a mandate to hold an independence referendum, it would happen very, very quickly because it's a very different thing. So right now, we're trying to push an unwilling government to do something they don't want to do, but they have to do because if they don't, they'll lose power. If we elect a government that's focused on doing that, then they would do it immediately because that's what they were elected to do. So that's the difference here. And for all the flack I give our current government, they are doing what they said they were going to do. The only thing that lots irks me, but the thing that really irks me is that they're openly campaigning against, which I don't believe is appropriate from our government.
So if you hesitate to have any questions, we're happy to ask them for you. We can understand that sometimes the questions could be harsh or something else. We're happy. Sandy over there is happy to write your question down and she will be asked. By the way, we want to thank you for the reporter sitting over here. I see you have some snacks. Enjoy. Well, Sandy, here you go.
Okay. This is an audience question. If, God forbid, we don't win the referendum, what's next?
I think it'll be a Wednesday. Isn't it on October 19th, Tuesday?
Something like that.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't help myself.
Start with that? Go ahead.
Life goes on. We do the same thing that we're doing. We try to encourage conversations, engage in civics, participate when we can, express our opinions, and wear them boldly without fear. It's actually the same if it's regardless of which way the referendum in October goes. The next day is going to be, well, actually, the next day will be like a celebration or not. But after that, it's kind of business as usual, and then continue the conversation, and then we just keep moving forward. And I've said, I believe that we're going to hear yay, you guys won your referendum, and you've asked that we begin the process to pursue a constitutional referendum. But we have an election coming up in 2027, and you need to fear the NDP, so just let's worry about winning the election, support us, give us your money, worry about your sovereignty later. That's what I think is going to happen. It may not. But in a nutshell, nothing really is going to change either way, and the conversation is relevant regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, I'll go a little further. As for what we should do, I mean, I've been committed to independence for a long, long time. I'm going to be committed the day after the referendum, no matter what it turns out to be, and I think a lot of us will. That's the time for us to, well, take a breather, because we're going to be really tired after that campaign. But then really start to study then, how did we run short? Why? Who did we not reach? What were we giving in our messaging that didn't convince enough people to come over? I think a very large one, and we've seen that from a lot of these public events and so on, is the lack of an Alberta pension plan. There's been a lot of misinformation that people will lose their pensions if we become independent and things like that, and it's made a lot of seniors very uncomfortable and worried. We get that question all the time. And actually, it's pretty sad that there's, and it's fair enough. If somebody is one paycheck away from insolvency, they're worried about shaking up the status quo. I think it says a lot, though, about this system when we have people who work their whole lives and their one crappy pension check, and I promise you it's a crappy pension check, but it's still, if it's the only check you're getting, it's very important to you, and that keeps people from voting. So let's look at the things we can do within Alberta to change that. I believe we would be 10% higher already if we already had an Alberta pension plan. Why have we not fully gotten that provincial police force? Those things from the Alberta agenda that Stephen Harper put out 25 years ago, and we still haven't done. Ben Trudeau, if you get the chance, or watch some of our past broadcasts, he's fantastic from Quebec, and he does lecture us on a lot of things, saying Alberta's really got to start doing a lot of the things that Quebec's already been doing by making themselves much more independent within Canada. Those are the things to do the day after if, as was said, heaven forbid, we shouldn't get over 50% on October 19th.
On that note, I'm going to address a question that we've gotten from a few different events, and that is, what about all the businesses that left Quebec after the referendum and leading up to the referendum? There is a what do we call it? A talking point out there that says any talk of independence scares away business, and Alberta independence, the conversation is causing businesses to leave. Well, first of all, that's not happening. And second, if you read Ben's book, and Ben, he was leading up to the 1995 referendum, Ben was in the youth wing of it was the Liberal Party, but it wasn't the Liberal Party. It's ADQ, I guess. And ADQ. And they kind of ignored the youth. And the youth wing said, okay, well, we're going to start our own party. Well, they started their own party. They got 7% of the vote, elected 2 people to the legislature, and actually ended up holding the balance of power. And they were the ones that the governing party had to negotiate with to get the question. So it was the ADQ and the youth wing that actually got the question on the ballot. And I tell you this just as context, that Ben knows what he's talking about when he mentions these things. So Ben explains this very well. In Quebec, one of the things that the Quebec government did that wasn't good for business was they imposed language laws. Unconstitutional language laws, by the way, which have been challenged 4 times in the Supreme Court. They've lost 4 times, and right now they're in Supreme Court again the 5th time. Every time they just change a paragraph in the legislation, reenact it, and end up getting sued again. But they don't care, because they're sovereign. They don't care about what the Constitution says. Anyhow, those language laws caused businesses to leave Montreal, specifically. There were big corporations in Montreal who were being told they needed to change their offices to French, change their manuals, change everything, and the managing people were like, this is going to cost millions of dollars. It would be way cheaper just to move to Toronto. And they did. That caused a lot of businesses to leave Quebec. It wasn't necessarily, or even at all, according to Ben, anything to do with talk of sovereignty. Because in Quebec, as I mentioned before, even prominent business leaders can openly talk about sovereignty, be separatists, and be well respected and still get business. It's not like here where they get cancelled. So when people say talk of Alberta independence is making businesses leave, I first fire back with that, and then I mention that Alberta, since the Liberal government took power with Justin Trudeau's first reign of terror, $150 billion estimated of investment capital has been lost in Alberta. That had nothing to do with any talk of independence or sovereignty. That had everything to do with liberal policies imposed on Alberta that we could not change. We didn't have a say. And so when I say policies and legislation is put on us that we suffer the consequences for, I mean it, and I've felt it, I've lived it, because I started in the Alberta oil patch in 2000, and I've experienced these things right up through this. $150 billion. Could you imagine what we could have done with that? Can you believe that without any talk of independence, well, I mean, I guess there was some, but it wasn't mainstream, the largest energy company in Canada moved to Texas. Does anybody remember Encana? That was the beacon of Canadian energy and prosperity. Amazing company. And they left during those Liberal policies because the business case in Alberta did not support them being here. They went to Texas. So if you are concerned with business and investment leaving Alberta, you should be pursuing Alberta sovereignty, in which we can decide what policies affect us, whether or not we are open for business, whether or not there's a business case for people to do business here at all. And in that way, we can take control of that. And I'll point out that this is another reason why it's so important to talk and have these conversations and educate yourselves. Because I went believing for years that the referendum caused businesses to leave Quebec. And it wasn't until I met a Trudeau, can you believe that, that I found out that that wasn't the case. So if we keep talking about these things, we get to the bottom and we get the best outcome.
Hi, my name's Ethan, and my question is in direct relation to what you were just saying about Encana. I have a few questions. Would a sovereign Alberta be able to bring Encana back with better policy that gives them a thriving business? And in the sector of energy itself, would Alberta be able to vastly improve and expand and empower the energy sector so that not only will there be massive amounts of energy to all the Albertans, that they begin the business of exportation of energy, which brings me to my next question. Do you have an idea of what nations and countries would be interested in sitting at the table to begin the discussion of working out a deal for energy, particularly oil, of course, and other resources? But of course, it's going to be oil largely in the beginning. And then my next question is, by what means would the resources and the oil ideally be transported, like by harbor, or which harbor would be the harbor Alberta would be looking to operate out of to export oil to other countries? And those are my questions. Very energy related.
Need a few. Want me to start there? Sure. Yeah, well, so, I mean, we might not necessarily get it in Encana back. I don't know if it's under the same name any longer even, but I mean, the bottom line is there was a lot of capital flight that has happened, and that's a big example of it. An RBC report came out recently that said $1 trillion in capital flight left Canada, and they estimate $700 billion of that was in the energy sector. Not all just oil and gas, some of that was hydroelectric as well. But Canada has become an investment pariah in many, many levels because of our regulatory environment. Presumably, if we become independent, we will bring in a better regulatory environment that could attract that capital back. When companies feel that they won't get the rug pulled every time they spend $1 billion trying to get approvals and things and then find it gets canceled, or they just layer on more regulations to the point like Energy East where they just give up, we can build that climate. Now, we got to be honest with people too. The instability, and there is instability, if we're looking at independence, if we're really actually become independent, until we figure out our system and establish it, there probably won't be any immediate capital investment until they know exactly what they're investing in. Like, you know, that's just a reality of changing times. Businesses don't like that instability. They also don't like the stability of what the Liberal government has done by making it unprofitable to get that infrastructure. Getting it to markets. One market, for example, that shows a lot of interest, and they have a massive heavy oil refinery, for example, is India, and that's a huge developing economy. And they would be overjoyed to have some heavy crude tankers coming there and regularly giving them feedstock. That's just one example, but there are many, many countries. If we could get out to the Pacific and start exporting on a large volume with our heavy products. How to get the pipeline there? What we're lacking right now, well, we've got a few problems. I mean, our problem has been ideological from the federal government that wants to throttle conventional energy. Assuming independence, we've got that ideology out of the way, but we still do have a different state to the west of us that we have to negotiate with to expand exportability, say to Prince Rupert or Vancouver. People do talk about the UN Convention and Maritime Law where a landlocked country must be granted access to the coast, and that's technically true, but realistically the UN isn't going to come marching in and force BC to let us build a pipeline across there. What we have to do is negotiate. But we have, and so let's go into that theory that we become independent, we would have a massive amount of leverage in that negotiation because Prince Rupert is one of the main drivers of the economy for British Columbia, and the only way they can get their goods to Prince Rupert and away from it is across Alberta by rail. So we have a mutual interest in making an agreement, whereas we would bring a pipeline across. They can't be expected to assume risk for nothing. They would have to, you work out deals and such. And likewise, if they were being foolish and obstinate about it, well, we'll just shut down the rail line for a while. It would take, I don't know how many hours before they suddenly come back to the negotiating table. So, I think reasonable states understand that and they'll make a deal. But I mean, a lot of it's getting speculative and going down. But these things with people saying we would be landlocked and have our energy shut in is just utterly untrue, as you were pointing out. There's a world that wants our products. Our problem is that we have difficulty getting them to them. And there's no reason we can't build those relationships and that infrastructure to do so afterwards. But it's all one step at a time. It's a very positive outlook in the long run for us economically. But the first one is we got to shed that ideological federal system that is just fighting us every step of the way with us trying to develop this resource.
Hey guys, my name's John. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate you spending your time doing this for us.
Get closer to the microphone, please.
Okay. So I think we have a concern with the federal government fast-tracking foreign nationals into our military, and a bunch of them are stationed here in Alberta. And I think that could cause a problem when it comes to voting. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't know much about that specific topic, so I can't speak directly to it, but I can say that immigration policy should be crafted to suit the place people are immigrating to, right? Like when we bring people to Canada, when people come to Canada, they should be building with us. You know, not believing everything that we do, but at least sharing some common values. And if we're doing that, regardless of whether they're becoming part of the military or a police force or whatever, I don't see an issue. However, across history, it is well documented that when countries abandon their values and principles and allow mass migration of people who don't share the values and principles of that nation, the nation does not sustain. And a very good example is Rome. Like that, it happened to Rome, it happened to many other empires around the world. And maybe it's just something that happens, but I think that we should be preserving the place that people want to move to if that makes sense. Like, Canada's always been a place where people desire to live. Like, they give up their lives, they sell everything they have overseas, and they work like crazy to get here. And then they get here and they work hard and they build something. And they do that for a reason. They do that because of the Canada that Mr. Ruda knew was true, the old Canada. And I know a lot of those folks who are new Canadians. I have a convenience store, and 90% of the people that are vendors, they're all new Canadians. And they are absolutely livid in what they see with Canada's immigration policy, because they work their butts off and they build with us. And what they're seeing is not, it's not the same as when they came here, right? We're bringing in people that don't share values, they don't want to build, and it's becoming a burden. And it might sound cold to talk about humans as a burden, but if a country can't take care of the people that are creating the space where other people want to come, what's going to happen in that space? And what are we going to be preserving so that other people have a place to come, right? So while I can't speak directly to your comment about the fast tracking the military, it doesn't sound like it's a good idea. It doesn't sound any better than the idea that our provincial government had fast tracking immigrants to RCMP in Alberta. I will say that in an independent Alberta, we could finally control our immigration, and our immigration could suit our needs. Right now, we could, under the Constitution, have shared jurisdiction over immigration with the federal government. So we can negotiate with them how many people land in Alberta and those types of things. But in Canada, we have mobility rights, unless you serve a hamburger that they don't want you to serve, and then your mobility rights go away. But we have mobility rights, so if someone comes to Ontario and they get their citizenship, they're free to move anywhere in the country. So we can't control our immigration to the point that is necessary to prevent an erosion of, the place. So that's it's one opportunity in an independent Alberta that can't exist within Confederation, is controlling immigration.
And I'll just add a bit on the military front. I believe with the new recruiting, up to 20% of new recruits now are non-citizens that are bringing in, because he's had difficulty getting Canadians to want to join the military with what they've done to it over the last, and not just Liberals, the Conservatives have atrophied the military as well. It's an area of strong concern for security reasons, for stability reasons. These are people that we potentially could be putting into some of the most dangerous or sensitive situations that we could imagine, and we certainly want to make sure that they have Canada's interests in mind. I got into that debate online with somebody a little while ago. They said, well, look at the French Foreign Legion. I said, yeah, look at them. They base them outside of France, and for very good reason, because they are all foreign nationals in the French Foreign Legion. It's not to say they're going to necessarily start a revolution within France, or that these 20% that are coming in, and I'm sure a lot of them actually are probably very good immigrants. I mean, it's also a good area to integrate people and have them serve Canada before they become citizens. We just got to be really darn careful with it. And 20% just feels to me a little high, and dangerously so. As far as it goes with voting, though, that's a matter of when somebody becomes a citizen. They still can't vote until they've become a citizen. So it won't immediately impact voting on things. But in the long run, presuming they get citizenship later on, it will change things. And that's getting back again to then, I guess, what kind of cultural values and things that the immigrants in particular we're bringing in come in. And so it's a big rabbit hole. But I am concerned just about that large amount of volume coming into our armed forces that we're not, Canadian citizens to begin with.
Hey guys, my name's Ron. It's just so great to have you guys out here, to be honest. What I get jazzed when you guys are talking about Constitution and what that looks for like in the future. And I hope, and this is just a talk, because it's Alberta, let's talk, man. So what I like to see is like, why aren't we promoting the things that are wrong with this country into the new Alberta? And I'm talking about like constitutional changes. I'm talking about the freedom of speech, you already said, a lot of the other things that we're seeing. Like, what I see in the movement is that we're going from like pipelines, and we're talking about all these things, but really what Alberta is saying is we need to be heard. We don't see any representation in the Senate. the House of Sober Second Thought, right? That place is basically an appointment. And I'm jazzed, like, let's get that going, let's change that. If at all we have that conversation of what's wrong and why aren't we being heard. When I look at our judicial system here, do you guys know that 70% of our judges in Alberta are Liberal appointed? So when we have a judicial system that isn't representing the people that it basically is there to protect, that's a huge concern for me, right? And so when I'm talking, these two lovely ladies that were here, they weren't pro-separation, and I could tell. But when I talked to them that way, they're like, you know what, Ron? I didn't know. And that's where I'm like, when you first mentioned that first past the point, you didn't really nail on it, but it's like a lot of people actually voted in 2016 when Justin Trudeau actually promised first past the point reform. And so a lot of people actually jumped on that bandwagon. Guess what? The first thing that was thrown out, first past the point, right? So I'm seeing a lot of things that are wrong with just Canada in general that would actually benefit a lot of provinces. Well, my question is, we're talking, right? We're talking about just what I just want to get at is that for the younger people, we're looking at that kind of stuff. Why aren't we talking about that more?
Yeah, the left has the term the Great Reset. And I would like to steal that back. And I also get jazzed about that. It's time to reset how we do things. And there's guys that are working on that as we speak that are coming up with, they're examining constitutions worldwide, saying what works with this one, what's good about that one, let's take this idea from that one. And again, the idea is to, from what we've heard, is to trot that out to you and me, and then you and I have a say in that as well. And there's a lot of stuff that has to get thrown out and start right from the and like Chris said, to be able to have that unbelievable privilege for the first time in my entire life, first time in the history of my country that I love, we actually would have a say.
I do want to mention, if we could change those things in the Constitution here that are causing the issues, I would be so happy. But we can't. We can't. We have tried. There's been 2 constitutional attempts in Canada, Meech Lake and Charlottetown Accords. We had the Reform Party, which was a absolute amazing Western-grown political solution that said the West wants in. One of the things that they were advocating for was Triple E Senate. And even the Supreme Court actually struck that down and said never. The reason why we can't fix these things, in my opinion, is because they're never intended to be fixed. Canada was never intended, in my opinion, to be an equitable relationship between East and West. And this is spoken out loud in 1903 on the steps of the Winnipeg legislature when Clifford Sifton said, "We desire, and every patriotic Canadian desires, that the great trade of the prairies go to build up our factories and places of work in the East and contribute in every way to our prosperity." And that's kind of the way it's gone. I really struggled with this one because it took a lot for me to get from we need the leverage for constitutional reform to constitutional reform is impossible. Not only is it impossible, but the system was never designed the way we thought it was. And I spent a lot of time on this, and I wrote a blog, and it's a really long one. It's called "What Business Have Ye with Me, Your Majesty?" And I started with this thesis. Canada was created as a business case, not as a people deciding they wanted to self-determine and have a country. We didn't get into rooms like this and decide what our constitution was, ratify a constitution, select our government. It was a group of people who were tasked with keeping peace and order in Canada. One of them was John A. Macdonald, another one was Georges Etienne Cartier, and there was 4 or 5 others. I can't remember their names right now. They actually went to England, and they sat with the Crown's representatives, and they wrote the British North America Act. And they passed that act in British Parliament and imposed it on the Dominion of Canada. So it was another sovereign nation that wrote a bill telling Canada how we were going to be governed and what our laws were going to be. So part of that set the stage for a nation in which the people were subjects of the government. And that's where Canadians find themselves today. We have our motto in Canada is peace, order, and good government. Our neighbors to the south, who are for better or for worse, they're the greatest experiment in freedom the world's ever seen, celebrated 250 years this year. Their motto is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And there, they fought and bled for the opportunity to self-determine. They fought the British. They kicked their butts. And they lost a lot of lives. Something like 20 or 30,000 people died. And then they got together in rooms and they wrote their constitution. And then they amended it over a period of years. And it was by the people, for the people. That's what Alberta has the opportunity to do. Alberta has the opportunity, for the first time in Canadian history, for the people to decide the rules under which they'll be governed. The people have the opportunity to decide what the rules of the government are. We get to tell the people that want to be our leaders and governors how they can do it. We set the guardrails. We never did that. And that's why I believe that the Constitution has never been able to be changed. And you mentioned the Senate, that's a constitutional thing. Equalization's baked into the Constitution. Immigration rules are baked into the Constitution. All of these things that cause the inequality between East and West are baked into the Constitution. And I believe wholeheartedly that it's that way on purpose. And it all comes back to that Clifford Sifton quote. Quebec and Ontario are Canada. The West is the West. And that's why in 1980, the Liberal government literally said, screw the West, we'll take the rest. Because we weren't Canada. We're a resource colony. Nothing's changed.
That's what you're talking about, though. Yeah, the importance of having the discussion. We've got a whole generation that didn't live through Beach Lake and Charlottetown, that didn't get to watch Bert Brown carving Triple E into his field as a form of protest to point out that we need a Triple E Senate. We need to have the discussions now with a new generation that didn't get educated on these things to first show the problem. Senate I like using as one because it's just such a vile, undemocratic institution. So illustrate the problem, why we're terribly underrepresented within it, and then even those representatives who are in there are appointed and not democratically placed and often just aren't really doing their job anyways. And then you got to present a solution. And it's that road to walk them towards, because the solution in the end tends to lead to right where we are again today. But it's kind of like I was talking about before. You have to let them walk their way there. So when they realize, we could change the Constitution. Okay, well, let's have a look at past attempts. I mean, again, they didn't live through it, so it's not unfair for younger people to ask and not understand that this is not a formula that works. And eventually they will hit that same conclusion. Holy crap, we've got two choices. We accept this Constitution in perpetuity with how it poorly serves us, or we become independent so we can draft a whole new and better document and system for ourselves. So it's a process.
For an immigration model, for example, and I'm not saying Australia is doing a great job, but I personally love the Australian immigration model. First, you have to have 5,000 Australian dollars on your bank account to come in. And then there's a working visa and a tourist visa for a half year and a year. And if you want to immigrate to Australia, then they're having, okay, we want to have lawyers in or nurses in, and they're actually deciding who's going in there. So that's maybe one of the questions. We've got an anonymous question from the audience. Sandy is going to read it.
Okay. If the referendum does go through, what will happen to the pipelines that taxpayers are now funding?
Really good one. This particular referendum, though, is again not binding. So I mean, all the deals and processes and things that are happening are still going to carry on October 20th, same as they were on October 19th. Likewise, if we get to a clarity compliant referenda, well, when we get to a clarity compliant referenda, and when the time comes that we vote yes, same thing, the day after, that begins the process to moving towards a constitutional convention, transition committees, things like that. Things like pipelines, let's say that's a couple of years away. That means this pipeline is still at the talking stage, so there won't be much to change. But I mean, treat it like any other business transition that's halfway through. We have to have a plan, allow the business or whatever it may be to transition into the new system. If it's a federal partnership thing, that's part of the negotiations then, and we want the federal ownership right the heck out of it. This isn't going to work, we're done. So we'd have to do those sorts of negotiations in that transition as well. Things would change. Speaking on what I think with that pipeline, the chances of that thing going into the dirt are, I'd rather buy Lotto 649 tickets for my retirement than believe that thing's ever going to get done. But they'll still be talking about it when the time comes when we do vote to get out. But still, it's a good question because there's going to be a lot of things mid-process and in the air, and we will have to transition those smoothly when the time for independence comes.
This brings up another question, though. What has happened in Canada and in Alberta that the taxpayers have to backstop a pipeline? Seriously. Pipelines are very, very lucrative business deals. Like anyone who ships oil through a pipeline, they pay a toll, and they're money makers. So what have we done in this country and in Alberta that has made it impossible for a private business to build a pipeline? That should be the first question anyone asks. I don't want taxpayers to have to backstop pipelines. We shouldn't have to. Anything to do with energy, we shouldn't have to backstop it. We should have to regulate and maybe figure out how we can do it to benefit all of the partners appropriately while allowing business to do business. But that's the first question, really. Why do we have to backstop it all, and why do we let it get to that point?
There's another one, and it's campaign limits aside, what is your opinion about having one main leader for independence?
I don't think that's a good idea at all. Number one target is a lot easier than 15. Number two, I think there's a lot of different voices with a lot of different perspectives that are leaders in their own regard. And really, I think what's going to turn the tide on this isn't necessarily having one person who we can follow or who can be a leader, but it's going to be people realizing that they have to become leaders within their own circles. Because there's 50 people in this room tonight, which is awesome. I think there was only 20 last time. But we're not talking to everybody. That means that what you learn here tonight, whether you're pro or against my opinion, you're going to have to go out to your groups of people and your network and have these conversations with them. You have to become the leader. This isn't about a follow the leader thing. This is about who is willing to become the leaders necessary to make this work. Human beings have this interesting desire, and it's a thousands of year old desire to have somebody to follow. And I think part of that, I feel this as well, is because the notion of becoming a leader and putting yourself in public and you're at the forefront of things and you're subject to scrutiny and you're subject to insults and all sorts of things, it's not a comfortable thing and it's not for everybody. So we all want someone else to follow, but we kind of have to get past that a little bit and we have to be willing to take that little bit of a step. Thousands of years ago, we had a perfect leader, a perfect king who took care of everything, gave us everything we needed, and human beings said, hey, we want a king. And of course, I'm talking capital G God here. God's like, well, I am your king. Why do you need a king? And they said, well, we want someone here to be our king. And look how it's gone ever since, right? There's been good kings. There's been bad kings. There's been some absolutely horrible kings that massacred their population. So before we ask for a leader, we need to ask ourselves, how can we lead in our own capacity and further this without focusing on someone else?
Do you have any advice if the police come to someone's door about comments they've made on social media that is so-called hate speech?
Who's going to answer this one? Why? They haven't come to my door yet. So they can't find my address. So I'm waiting for the knock. That's a legal advice question, and it's kind of a valid one. If it was something like that, actually, I would say at this point, I would tell you what most lawyers would. Maintain your right to remain silent and call a lawyer. Okay, well,
I was expecting something way more spicy.
I'm sorry. I've already got 2 trial dates coming in the next 2 months for other stuff. I don't need another one right now. They're being so generous with my legal coverage as it is. But I mean, I just, I wish I had a good snappy answer for that one. I'm sure Chris is coming up with one perhaps in a moment. But it's a valid concern for people, though. I mean, look what's happened in the UK with people. Facebook posts. You can run a rape gang and you're fine, but say something bad about an Islamic guy and you're going to be in the clink. That's really, really problematic, and that's what we're looking at with Bill 9 and some of these things coming. But, just when getting to that specific context of what we would do if the police showed up at your door, it's kind of like if somebody was asking investment advice, I'm going to be cowardly and say, look, I'm wearing Walmart jeans. I'm not the guy to tell you about that. And legal advice, I do leave to the lawyers. I would just say call a lawyer and maintain your right to remain silent, because, talking to cops in a situation like that's probably going to make it worse for you. We've got to change that legislation so we never have to worry about them coming to your door for something you said online, though.
So I guess it's 9:30 now. Have anybody still a question? Comment? A talk?
If someone has 40 or 50 questions rapid fire, that's great, because we have a sponsor on the live stream who's donating money for every question. So if you have a question, now's the time.
Over here. That's right, Jess.
I even have it started my countdown.
Do you guys think that there would ever be a time to start a separatist party again?
Well, yes and no. I don't believe that we need any new political parties. There's a bunch of political parties out there that just, some are not doing anything, some are doing very little. The problem that independence parties have had is that they're too independent and they don't work together, and there's always problems. I think if there was going to be, that it would have to be the individuals that are already in that sphere agreeing to work, together. Now, that's kind of a scary thing to say, because I can already hear the screaming on the internet about vote splitting and NDP and all this. Well, personally, I'm tired of being gaslit by my government and by politicians telling me that I have to fear something, so I have to vote for something I don't agree with. I'm just tired of that. And the other thing is, we've been working really, really hard. And when I say we, I mean less me and more some of the other folks in this room, lots of my friends, and thousands of Albertans have been working so hard to participate in the system and make change within, do all these things. And there's some successes, there's some failures, we've made some advances, there's been some setbacks, whatever, but it's not really having the outcome people thought it would. So maybe if that, people get frustrated and it's not bearing fruit, well, maybe people will have the courage to make that change. I don't think the appetite is there yet. So it's a difficult question to answer, because I don't really have a solid answer. But I would say that this comes back to my previous comment. If Alberta really wanted this really badly, they would just get past that fear and gaslighting, elect a party or elect people, even individual MLAs, it could be in the UCP, with a mandate to get a referendum on independence and make it happen. But if that courage doesn't exist, then we got to keep on pursuing it and trying to push the government to do it in a different way.
I'd sort of echo Chris in that there may be a time for one, but I don't think it's right now. Looking on, I've been kind of musing a bit, and again, that's getting premature because we've got way much to do before October 19th. I think we could do a lot of influence within the existing party that's in by participating within it, as Chris said, and influencing the MLAs and the boards and the people inside it. And I think a lot of that's already happening. Not to enough effect when we look at some of the things the Premier's done, but still, it's a route to go. I'm kind of looking at things federally too, though, and not fully independence-wise, but I'm not seeing my MPs speaking for Alberta. I'm seeing them saying everything with the goal of trying to win Toronto and Montreal, and I'm kind of getting tired of it. And some of the best federal policy I ever remember seeing was actually from Chrétien, because the Reform Party was nipping down his neck. He balanced the budget and he did a whole lot of things for us. I don't know. I mean, again, we've got bigger things to do than worry about forming a federal party or provincial party, but it sure would be nice to have a party like the Bloc who weighs every federal question by, well, what's in it for Quebec? And I'd like my member of parliament to think with every answer they say in the House of Commons with that same lens. But instead, they have whipped votes coming from Pierre Poilievre saying, well, you say what we want to hear to win Toronto and Montreal. And that's not what local representation's about. So there's partisan ideas, but now's not the time, I guess, is the way to...
So you're saying we need a Bloc Alberta Qua?
I like it.
Yeah. Quebec has something that we don't have. They lived under decades of linguistic apartheid, and there was a lot of pain that people went through, and it culminated in a federal party that represents Quebec and Quebec's interest. Alberta hasn't had that. So it's one of those things, how much pain do we need to endure before we actually do something like that? And it seems like maybe a lot. I don't know.
We got some people asking questions online on my feed, though. Question one is, where are we going to go to the cities? I know the answer, but some people online probably don't know.
September. We start heavily rotating throughout the cities in September. So very few rural events unless they're specifically requested and we line them up, but we'll be heavily focusing on the cities.
I thought it was in August.
September.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Pat, and I was just wanting to talk about Danielle Smith a little bit. About 4 or 5 years ago when APP started, she bought her membership right beside me in High River, so I knew she was on board. But boy, since Carney came to Alberta here a couple months back, she's flipped like a fish. And I'm just wondering, like, Pierre is putting out there, you know, about Carney and how he's spending all these billions of dollars traveling all over the world and all the food he's buying for his people. And then today I heard that Danielle is so proud of Carney for all his traveling and how he's getting everybody on board with Canada. And it's just freaking making me mad because I like Danielle. But what has happened to Danielle that has made her flip like a fish?
Well, I think you'd have to ask her because I can't speak for her. But I can tell you from what I've learned about Alberta politics, our MLAs in Alberta, they seem to be, a lot of them seem to be waiting for this golden claw to come down from federal politics and pluck them out and bring them over. Why is that? Well, in the 90s, before Jason Kenney was a politician, he was a lobbyist, and he actually lobbied the Alberta government to reduce MLA's wages and remove their pensions. Now that might sound, hey, that's super conservative that they would do that. But then if you think a little deeper, if our provincial politicians have less lucrative jobs than our federal politicians, would it not kind of make sense that they would be willing to not fight as hard for Alberta so that they could have something happen federally? And we see that time and time and time again. That golden claw comes down, plucks someone out and puts them in this thing. You know, Kenny's in the Privy Council, he's been a federal minister, all of these things. And I will point out that a lot of these politicians that kind of go that way, Danielle Smith and Jason Kenney included, they're all part of the same group from the 90s they worked together on different political campaigns. Danielle and Jason Kenney and Pierre Poilievre and even Ezra Levant was in that group, and my friend George and my friend Roy, they were all in this group. And, you know, talking to some of them about some of those things, it kind of makes me wonder if maybe our politicians in Alberta know that it's better on the other side. So they just don't want to make too many waves here. And Jason Kenney was a great example because he parachuted in, is going to save us from the NDP, going to give us a referendum on equalization, going to give us recall legislation, the Citizen Initiative Act, and then looking back, well, the referendum on equalization was a nothing burger, it didn't mean anything. He said, oh, hey, Trudeau, we had this referendum on equalization. They said, great, we don't care. Nothing happened. It was smoke and mirrors. The Citizen Initiative Act was almost unattainable by most standards. Like all of the things that they gave us they placated us with these crumbs, the incremental gains that Jason Kenney talks about, but it didn't change anything with Alberta's position within Confederation, nor could it ever. And so now as I watch the events unfold with Danielle Smith, I was at the leadership dinner that APP hosted for her and some other leadership candidates within UCP. I watched her buy her membership. And I listened to her say that if she couldn't fix the things that needed to be fixed within Canada, that Dennis Modry and the APP was the answer, and we needed to get the referendum. And now I'm wondering how much of that was real and how much of it was just, throwing us a bone to get the group as a whole to support the leadership campaign. I don't know. I don't know what's going through their heads. But what I can tell you is that we have to start demanding that our MLAs put Alberta first. We need to know who's going to put Alberta first. We have MPs that will deal with Confederation. They'll deal with Canada. Our MLAs should be putting us first and taking control of all the things under the Constitution what they can. And I don't see that happening right now. And you'll need the microphone, otherwise no one will hear.
Every one of us in this room should be going to the monthly or bi-monthly CA meetings in our little towns. Like, ours is in Claresholm most of the time. The annual one in January was in Fort Macleod. And the turnout for the annual CA meeting was pathetic. And they had Berta Proud Dad there as their speaker. Like, people have to start going to the local board meetings and listening and getting up and asking questions. Because that's the only way we're going to win this, is if we start showing up. Even if we don't talk, we have to show up.
Yeah, the only way to hold politicians accountable is to get off our own butts. I'm not sure what's happened to Premier Smith. I still think highly of her. I'm part of that same crowd in the 90s from Reform and into and onward, Wildrose and so on too. And I know they were genuine people at that time looking for change. I don't know why she insists on spooning with Carney these days. I do appreciate most of the things, a lot of the things she's still done, but I'm getting concerned. I think most politicians, the second they get elected the first time, should have a stamp put on their collar, just like a jug of milk with an expiry date. Because they start with the high ideals and they slip into the terrible mix. And Jason Kenney's a prime example. He's a very smart man. The Jason Kenney of the early 90s with the Taxpayers Federation was a pit bull who did hold Alberta politicians to account. The Reform Party Jason Kenney was an excellent opposition member. He was constantly voted hardest working member of Parliament. And then even the cabinet minister, Jason Kenney, in immigration was pretty good. But what happens with them, the term for it, there's a few, Ottawa syndrome, dome disease, auto-washed. When they're in there too bloody long, they lose sight of why they got there in the first place. And it shows. He's not alone. Jason's just a very striking example of it. But it happens to many, if not all of them. Premier Smith had a break in the middle of her time in the legislature thanks to her rather ill-conceived floor crossing. But she's been in quite a long time too. And I think maybe forgetting why she got involved in all these things in the first place. So the only thing we can do, though, is get involved. And something we got to do more often is, and I'm not calling for her yet at this point, but with a lot of them, is just fire them. If you don't keep firing them, they'll keep getting away with it. A lot of them would like to have their job longer than 4 years. And if we start turning them over a lot, they'll start waking up.
Another thing to think about is we keep on doing this thing where we elect somebody who is not necessarily quite aligned with what we want, but we do it because we're so scared that if we don't, we'll get something worse. And then we whine and complain when they don't do all the things we want. Like, That's why I say if we have the courage to change that, it will change. But if we don't, it won't. So I say, yeah, go to your CA meetings. Of course, participate. Be civically engaged to the best of your ability. Stop giving them your money. We've put $12 million in the UCP bank account. $12 million. That's what they still have. And a lot of that money is probably going to be used to campaign against what Alberta wants with self-determination. Don't give them your money anymore. Give your money to someone who actually, is aligned with your values, and let their voices get amplified so that there's maybe a little bit of a threat that something might change. Because right now, I think a lot of our MLAs, they are comfortable knowing that they'll never lose their position because the NDP is so scary. They think we're dumb. They're gaslighting us. They're telling us, oh, if you get an NDP government, it's going to be your fault because you split the vote. Well, no, it's their fault because they're not doing what we want, so we're not going to vote for them, right? Just some things to think about. Civically engaged to the best of your ability. And I'm not saying don't participate in a UCP thing. Absolutely do, 100%. Just know that you need to support what you believe in.
Is anybody counting the question? 10 bucks is 10 bucks.
That's a question.
Oh, here we go.
So, all right, no more questions. 1, 2, 2.5, 3 quarters, 3 2 7/8, 2 15/16. We're done.
All right, well, thank you very much, folks. It's been an absolute privilege to be in southern Alberta again. Beautiful down here. You people are, I said you people again. That's the end of my career. You guys and gals are awesome. Thank you so much for the spread, and thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions. We really, really appreciate it.
And thanks to Ben, Chris, and Cory, of course. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. People who are watching online, go to freedomcalendar.net, and if you want to make some donations, you want to have some more information.
And also the Christmas stuff is also streaming as well too.
If you want to do some donations or have some more information, go to letstalkalberta.com. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Southern Alberta is the most beautiful Alberta. Good for hiking. Oh, if I only knew there was lighting out there, that would make my life so much easier for the cameras. Boom. You're muted. Boop, boop. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.
You can hear me. Yeah, now you can hear me. Well, there you go, folks. That's another Let's Talk Alberta town hall. This time we're in Cowley, and it was absolutely fantastic. There's a whole bunch of snacks they brought us over there. There's some beautiful scenery here to look at. It's an absolute privilege to be able to do this. And thank you, folks, very much for sticking with us and watching all of these live streams. If you have any other questions, please post them in the comments, and I'll try and answer them as best I can. I usually get to them within a day or two. I'm also going to put out a couple more booklets with Let's Talk Alberta that have a lot of these questions and answers in them, and you'll be able to pick them up at a Let's Talk Alberta event. So see you soon. Have a great night, and meow.